It's so funny because when I speak about addiction, right? The truth is, we're all addicted to the way we
Mm,
process reality. We
hmm
all are, right? And so I love the first step of the 12-step program is you admit that. And
right.
once you admit it, there's a possibility to transcend it. Until
hmm
I tell the truth about that, there's no possibility to move beyond it.
That was my guest this week, founder of Y12SR or Yoga 12-Step Recovery, Nikki Myers. I'm your host, MartinJon, and this is the Recover Yourself podcast, where we look at what we're recovering to beyond what we're recovering from. Nikki and I align in so many areas, and this was such a fun and entertaining interview. Yoga 12-Step Recovery was born out of 2 relapses that Nikki experienced, and her experiences led her to wanting to build something that connected all the different aspects of what she was learning from her cognitive work and her work in stillness. Y12SR has a term that says the issues are in the tissues, and I do believe and have spoke a lot about how we have and carry our trauma body with us everywhere we go. As that relates to recovering yourself, that trauma body, or those tissues, do need to heal, and like any cut or abrasion, they can heal themselves when we add awareness and care for those damaged tissues. Nikki has a lot to offer in this interview, and even if you're not someone who is open to yoga or who has been open to yoga in the past, I encourage you to opening your mind to the possibility of trying Y12SR because for many of us, one little shift can change the game forever, and Y12SR is just another tool in the arsenal of those of us looking to do the work with ourselves, for ourselves, to make the world a better and more loving place. And I want to mention that new Recover Yourself workshops are always in the planning. These workshops expose and unroot traumas that we carry, helping us step back and be more curious about what we're experiencing rather than getting caught up in the emotional roller coasters of experiencing it. Through these, behavioral health professionals can earn continuing education units, and for more information on all that, check out my website, martinjon.com. Now, onto my conversation with Nikki. So I found out about Yoga 12 Step, I don't know, a couple months ago. And then I went to one here in Chicago. And, you know, my recovery has taken me away from meetings. And I went to the Yoga 12 Step, and it's a totally different approach. And I really enjoyed it. It was like this like truncated meeting. But then there was like this yoga, which although, again, I'm not a yoga guy, but I'm versed, you know. And I really enjoyed it. And it just kind of was like, well, where did this come from? Like, and that was you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's interesting because I honor the 12 steps. Oh my God, there's so much in the 12 steps. And then when I really got involved in my deep, deep study of yoga, I kept seeing all these similarities, right? I kept seeing all these similarities. And so, and then my story is after my first 8 years in recovery, I relapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And my relapse took me deep. And after that first relapse, I was reconnected with yoga. I've been introduced to yoga early on, like in the 70s, right?
Right.
And then got away from it, you know, in the throes of addiction. In recovery, was reintroduced to it, but was when I got really serious about it was after that first relapse.
Right.
And then that was when I started making all these connections. Oh my God, you know, that sounds like yoga. This sounds like the 12 steps, you know, and started going back and forth and back and forth. And then what I did was decide to step away from 12 step again. And all I wanted to do was yoga.
Right.
And then after 4 years, I relapsed again. And it was then that I recognized that at least someone like me needed to have these things deeply coupled, that they needed to be married, right? That they needed to be a part of each other, that there had to be this coupleship. And it was out of that the whole thing was born, that Y12SR was born. Because I started seeing a whole lot of other people who were just like me. And again, that's where the issues live in the tissues, right?
Yeah.
That I needed a way to release that was something different than running or going to the gym or exercising, that really combined the cognitive work that I was doing both in therapy and in the 12-step program. I mean, that's very head focused. It's very cognitive work. And that's great. And I needed that. But I also needed the deep somatic work that's involved in yoga. And I needed something that tied together. In 12-step program, they talk about it as a physical, mental, and spiritual disease.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't much talk about what it is that connects the physical to the mental to the spiritual.
Right.
And so I needed to tap back into what that connection is in a very, very deep way. And it was through this that all that happened, through that combination.
So much of, like what you're talking about in terms of like, oh, people are running and people are exercising and people are gambling and people are doing other sorts of like just addictive things. Like, when are you gonna sit with yourself?
That's right. And it's deep because, that stuff goes away, right? You may injure yourself and you can't run. Who are you then? Right? And you may, right? And sooner or later, all that stuff goes away. And who are you then? So until we believe very similarly or think very similarly around this. When I think about what recovery really is and what addiction really is, like you, I call it the disease at its root. It's the disease of the lost self. And anytime I look outside of myself for something that can only come from the inside, I'm likely to form or move in the direction of an addictive relationship with whatever that is, right?
That's right.
I've been in an addict type relationship with Nordstrom's, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, Nikki, fuck off. Thank you for being with me. And thank you for taking this time. Cause I am so interested in where we as people in recovery are today. We're not perfect.
It's always a practice.
That's right.
It is always a practice. I was writing a little bit about, where I'm finding myself in the midst of all of this turmoil. And for me, this is such a practice in holding complexity, right? Mm-hmm. It's just so complex. Yeah. And so what I have learned about the practices, right? There is that phrase from 12-step program that I love, which says you just keep coming back. Mm-hmm. The thing is, what is it that you come back to, right? Mm-hmm. It's that, right? And for me, it's coming back to this sense of center, this mm-hmm. sense of what I hear you speaking to, this sense of recovery of self, right. This sense of, and it's not just small s self, right? It's big S self, that in this connection with the whole, with the whole of what is, that I am intrinsically a part of that, and I can trust it to keep coming back to that right. sense of centeredness, that sense of awareness, that sense of consciousness, that sense of all those things. And that when I'm in that place where I can keep coming back to that, then what I don't do is create problems about the problems, because that's what I do. I create problems I get into the worry, I get into the fear, I get into the, what the hell am I going to do? I get into the doom, and I always talk about me. I make up stories, and my stories never end in she lives happily ever after. My right. stories usually end in, and I'm going to die, right? Right. So I got to keep coming back to this place of center so I don't create problems about the problems. Right. We're always going to have problems, right?
So in terms of all this, I want to like, where in your life during your recovery, and maybe this happened in different stages because you had relapsed twice, and two,
Yeah,
like, they sound like two major relapses.
they were two major relapses.
So since your recovery began, and I'm going to talk about that, 1989, right?
Right.
Right, like that's when you started learning
Actually,
this process.
1987 is when I
1987.
first found recovery. It's when I first found the 12-step program in 1987.
Oh, what were some of the things that you discovered about your life and the patterns that you were living since your recovery began, um, that were not true?
One of the first big ones in that first 8-year period of recovery, I grew up in a family system that while it looked really good on the outside, and this is one of the big things from this period of recovery. I've learned to make the container bigger, and again, holding the paradox and holding the complexity of I love and adore my mother and father, and some shit happened in my childhood that should never happen to a child. That's right. Both things are true. How to hold the complexity of both those things. One of the things, and it wasn't just family systems, it's culture, it's institutional, it's systemic. I'm a Black woman, so there's a whole set of things with that. But one of the didn't need a better word, a lies, right? That I bought into, and it came through family system stuff, was this notion of, pick yourself up by your own bootstraps, you'll be strong, you gotta be this and you gotta be that, right? And I would say that kept me out in the streets a lot longer than I needed to stay out in the streets, right? That I couldn't ask for help, that I couldn't be open to receive support. I didn't know how to receive support. Right? That I had to have this image, and I was in relationship with this image of me as the strong Black woman, right? Or that, I was in relationship with myself in based on the cultural programming, family programming, all of those kinds of things that were completely a lie.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
Oh man, yes. Like, and I'm so glad that we're talking about it, because like, it's like when we look, like, I'm a big fan and supporter of women just in general, but this story, and I grew up in Chicago, right? So I grew up around all sorts of races, all sorts of people, whatever. So and looking at how sabotaging the lives of Black women are because of ideas that they're coming up with and that they have. And again, I've been in the room, so I've heard these stories over and over, and you can't even bring it up because it's so ingrained as truth. Right.
Based on programming that we've all received from a sick system, right, that believes in superiority and inferiority, right?
Yep.
I always speak to how what I would assert we're living in is the matrix, right? And the matrix is binary. The matrix says, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is inferior, this is superior, and you're supposed to fit in these little boxes in the matrix, right? And so we get caught in that programming that is that matrix, and because it comes from this other source, we believe it. Believe it. And that's all of us. and it's just as damaging to those who have this superior point of program and reference as it is. It's just as damaging.
Right.
And so, it's really, and so I bought into it. And when I did, right, nothing really ever intrinsically and spiritually felt right about it. And when you got that disconnection, where I'm out of integrity with true self. Right. I'm out of integrity. And when I'm out of integrity, it's easy to drink or drug because that's a painful state. And that shit works for a minute. Right?
that shit works. Like that's right.
For a little while anyway.
Oh yeah, it does.
But when you're in pain, you want relief. Right? And it gives a sense of relief from that for a little while. And it works till it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're gonna do it till you don't. Like that is
do it till you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful because like I always look at, like I look out at the world now from where I am. Life is uncomfortable. And there is nothing that you can do about that.
Right.
But we have things and these externals that we were talking about earlier that can make life a little more comfortable. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, everything that you buy is about making you more comfortable. Yeah. Your car, your house, your like everything that you participate, like everything that is in the world of commerce is there to make your life more comfortable. I'm not saying that we should get rid of everything that's on the market, but what I'm saying is like that is there to pull you away from discomfort.
Right.
The thing is discomfort is coming for you.
Right. And it's true. And nothing's wrong with any of those things. So,
no, not at all.
Out of good, bad, right, wrong, inferior, superior, out of that matrix binary kind of thinking, there's nothing wrong with a great car and a great house.
Nope, not at all.
It's great stuff, right? Until I start to believe, right? It's like everything. Too much, you risk injury. Too little, you risk atrophy, right? I don't want either one of those. I'm looking for, this is one of the things that we look to teach in Y12SR, right? That I can feel, right? When I go to the domain of, I become attached to it, right? I've crossed over into the domain of too much, right? It becomes, I'm so attached that if you take it away, it's going to cause pain. Right?
Yeah, I'm no longer me because you took away something of mine that makes that I defined as me.
I know who I am because that's right, because you took away this thing. I use an example. I've got like great-grandchildren and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But one of my great-grandchildren, she's just turned 4. But again, I was reminded when she was 2 years old. And those 2 words come into your vocabulary, no and mine, right? Mm-hmm. And she was into this, it's mine, my milk, my toy, my mommy, my this, my that. And you take the my away, and it's like you cut off her arm, right? Because she can't tell herself.
Right.
She thinks the my is me, right? That's who she is. And it doesn't go away, right? It becomes my job, my house, my car, my money, and then it goes nationally. My water, my,
our arbitrary border, right? That's my border. Like you can't, you don't cross that. It's like, who fucking drew that shit? Come on.
Yeah. Exactly. And, and then you take it away and you no longer know who you are, right? And it's when I get attached to something to the degree that if it goes away, I can't move. I'm starfish. I'm ruined, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know who I am. Then
Right.
we're in the domain of, I don't know who, I'm confused about self. I'm confused about who I am,
Right.
right? And suffering will occur.
And
Suffering will occur.
we have to get there. And that's where we're at right now with all this COVID stuff. And like, well, who are we?
Yep.
Well, right.
Who
Well, we are
are
all of
we?
us. We
Yeah,
are
yeah.
everybody.
That's right. And I think this has the possibility.
Yes.
It has the possibility of maybe being that place, that line of demarcation where we recognize the collective, right? That there is no I without we, right?
Yeah.
Right? There just isn't. And so I'm hopeful that this might serve, if I gather some hope out of this thing, that this might be the place that maybe that line of demarcation occurs.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a real test to see if people really want to hold on to the old ideas.
That's right. It's so funny because when I speak about addiction, right? The truth is we're all addicted to the way we process reality. We all are, right? And so I love the first step of the 12-step program is you admit that. And once you admit it, there's a possibility to transcend it. Until I tell the truth about that, there's no possibility to move beyond it. So I'm hopeful this is a reckoning point where people can begin to accept that that's true, right? And then maybe there'll be that possibility will open up to be empowered. Once I accept it's true, there's an empowerment that can happen.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
What were some things that have changed for you that at one point you were like, this is never going to change. This is just who I am.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so much.
Yeah.
This level of comfort with vulnerability and transparency, right? It's been huge. You never could have told me that I would be able to as freely talk about my past and the things and be grateful for it, right? To recognize that those are all experiences that serve into in the service of the work that I do in the world today, right? Yeah. Right. I usually always use this example. I love it. As a matter of fact, it's the image on my computer that we're standing on a rock that's spinning in space, right? Yeah. That everything's moving and everything's changing and to try and stop something is like you're trying to stop the rock from spinning in space, just trying to stop a feeling. So I would have told you that I was an introvert, right? And there still is a piece of me so I don't look at myself as introverted, but boy, do I like that space of silence and that space of going inward reflection and the inward journey. But I would have told you that I was an introvert and that I would never share my anything really deeply about myself. And that's totally shifted. That's totally shifted,
I love when we get into like long-term recovery and what we start to experience is the falling away of labels like that.
That's right.
We're no longer, working within this binary of like right, wrong, good, bad, black, white, whatever. It's all just kind of now we understand that gray area so much deeper.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. That's part of, for me, the transcendence, right? Of beyond the binary, right? And what I've discovered is, for me at least, and for a lot of people, I had to tell the truth about what is, right? Before there was any possibility to say, I'm so much more than that, that it doesn't, I'm so much more, right? Usually when I'm introducing myself wherever I am, I start out with, I'm an addict, alcoholic, codependent, dot, 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 dot. And then the and. And I love that 3-letter word, because all of it is a part of the equation.
Right.
On the other side is, I'm a therapist, I'm a yoga therapist, I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, I'm an MBA, I'm the mother of 2 living and 1 deceased child, right? All of that together, right? And what I've discovered is, when I ignore, deny, pretend, or that only the quote good part is there, and I deny, and ignore, quote unquote, that bad part over there, that what I do is create a separation, that there's an internal war that goes on inside. And that the part of the journey has been reintegrating all of it, all parts of myself into this greater whole. And it's been such a gift in this journey. And I'm still reintegrating parts of myself. And I will be, right? There are parts of,
like, that's why you're here. Like, you're not gonna just finish one day and just be like, oh, I woke up and I'm done. That's the day you don't wake up. Like, that's it. Like that is when you're done.
Relapse, right? That's what I did. That was the day I relapsed. I said, I'm done. I'm done.
Right. I once read a quote, and I don't know who it was. I'm my background's in the arts, and so I have this. It was an artist. I don't know if it was Picasso. It seems like it might have been. And he had said something to the effect of, you want to have a goal that you cannot achieve.
I love that.
Just have a goal that you're always working for. And if you could achieve it, it's not big enough. Just keep making it bigger, because you don't want to wake up and not know what to do.
Yeah.
Just and depending on where you are today, that's going to change possibly as you grow. Because how big can you think today is not going to be how big you thought 12 years ago.
I got a really simple example of that. I had my dream car, right? And I had this dream car when I was like 40 years old, right? And I got into a situation where I could get my dream car, where I really could get my dream car. And that happened when I was 62 years old, right? And I got my dream car, and all of a sudden recognized that the dream had changed, right? I was still
and you're still chasing.
That car wasn't useful for me. It didn't make sense for who I was in that moment. It might have made sense at that age, but things changed, and I held on and was attached to something.
Once you get culture and other people and other things in your head, you get, then a fact is real, right? And it's no, there are no facts, there are no truths, there's what you experience.
That's right. But someone said to me one time, there is no is. And I'm like, right? It's always changing. It's
always changing. So after your final relapse, what are some things, and would you consider yoga a thing that you may have an addictive relationship with?
I think you can have, and that's one of the things we talk about in some of the trainings. It's easy to have an addictive relationship with shit, just about anything, right? One of the things though that yoga says is you look at your intention, right? Deeply look at what your intention is for an action, for speech, for both your thoughts, your speech, and your behavior. Deeply look at an intention. And if I'm using the yoga practice to avoid or to run away from my life, then yeah, it can be addictive, right?
Yeah.
I can use it, one of the things, yoga, all these things are wonderful, wonderful tools. But the phrase I love, and I got this a long time ago when I was doing work in the data world, a tool with a fool with a tool is still a fool, right?
Yes.
A fool with a tool is still a fool. So these are wonderful tools, but I can use the tools foolishly, right? So yoga can be, meditation is a fabulous tool. And I've seen people use meditation in a way it's like a get high, right? They had this great experience, and now all their experiences are just, it's like you're chasing the high.
Yeah, that's right.
They said that was a bad meditation because they didn't see the lights and the colors and the and so they're chasing a high, right? And I've seen that over and over again. So you can use anything. You can use anything. And at the heart of the teachings and of yoga is you look deeply at that. Why what your intention is for being in this action and in this thought and having this speech, that you look deeply within that. So yes, you can use it like an addiction. The answer to that is yes. And there was another part of that question.
What were some things that you attached yourself to in maybe slightly addictive ways within your recovery, within your life in recovery since your final, since the last time you used?
Yeah. So in this 19-year period of recovery, one of the big ones is an image that I have of myself, right? So, I'm a teacher and I get addicted to myself as the image of teacher. Or the big one was wife, right? I was in relationship with someone that I just knew that we were going to be together. We were going to grow old together, right? And it didn't work out that way. Right. And when that went away, I recognized how I was in relationship with an image. I wasn't really in relationship with the person. I was in relationship with my image about the relationship. Right. Man. So, and it's been such a gift because I've begun to recognize how quickly I get into this addictive relationship with images that I make up about, about everything. Right? So it's just been this awareness around that.
And it's so easy for us to get addicted to codependency. I mean, I don't know if that was part of it, but like usually when it's relationship, it's usually about like you are fulfilling an idea that I have. I am fulfilling an idea you have. And as long as we never speak of it and don't deny each other these things, we're good. Yeah. The moment those things are questioned, the moment those things are, and they're never healthy anyway. But we lie to ourselves, like you're saying, like you just keep telling yourself, no, this is it. This is it. This is it.
Yeah.
And it ain't nothing. It ain't nothing for you,
And then, like I said, I've been addicted to my relationship with Nordstrom's. I thought I had to have a certain image and that bag or, those pair of shoes, right? That was going to, then I'd look the part and I'd be in this. Yeah. So yeah, it's been many things over the course of this time.
Yeah. Do you have any stories of points in your life where you were like, I am a different person?
Yeah. And they happen all the time in relationship,
Okay.
right? I I would have told you that I was very judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would have told you, and you know, there is a when I'm not taking care of myself, I find that I'll fall back to that as that's a default, right?
Judgment.
There is a pattern that's there, right? That I need to be consciously aware of and take care of myself. You know, 12-step program to talk about just simply don't let yourself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Halt. Make it. Yep.
When I let myself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, that neural pathway becomes really, really easily to just sleuth back down that
Yeah.
judgmental pathway. So it's just been it serves now as a big flag, right? When that happens, when I get into that judgmental state, the first thing I ask myself is, hey, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And then I
Mm-hmm.
go take care of that first. And it's amazing how things shift
Yeah.
when I've taken care of those things. I can lose, so that judgment is a signal, right?
Yeah.
It's a big signal for me. And when I've taken care of those things, my commitment to humanity, right? And it has been just this beautiful epiphany and awakening, you know, that we're all just animals on this planet, right? And so just it just shifts everything. And that if I just let go, right? If I didn't even know this was possible. One of my spiritual teachers said that. He said, why don't you just let go and be a part of life, right?
Mm.
Quit trying to control it because you're not going to control it anyway.
That's
He
right.
said, just let go and be a part of life, right? And when I can do that, and it's not all the time, but
Mm.
when I remember that, it does, it shifts who I am in my daily walk in relationship with others in the world. And that's been a big epiphany.
Yeah. That's a huge one because like you you can't control what's going on. Like if you try, you're you're going to be surprised at how quickly you're going to be put in your place.
That's right.
You know, because
That's right.
you got no right to control that, and you don't want to either, because like if you're controlling that, you're affecting other people, and there are bigger things at play.
That's
and
right.
and I look at all of the stuff that we're dealing with now, and we're, like, just to remind people, if they're listening to this at another time, we're in the middle of COVID-19 in the United States and Europe and like across the globe. And we all contributed to the creation of this. We haven't like, it is our desire to transition and move forward. It is our desire to change economic systems. It is our desire to change the world that brought this about. Like, nothing can exist without the energy contributed towards it in order
That's
to
right.
produce it.
That's right.
So like, this is, and all things are somehow, even if we can't see it, for the best, and we're calling it out. So,
We're Yes, we are, right? So one of the words we often use in yoga is namaste, right?
mm,
And I've been trying to write this book forever. And this will may be the name of the book. It may not. I'm struggling with that. But the name right now is Namaste Motherfucker, right? And it's like namaste means the God, the good, the divine sweetness really is in there. It's like
Yeah.
the ragu, the commercial years ago. It's in there.
It's
It's
in there. It is.
and it's my job, particularly as a yogi, to find the namaste, even if what's in front of me looks like a motherfucker, right? COVID
Yeah,
looks like a motherfucker, right?
that's
It
right.
looks like a motherfucker. But
Yeah.
how can I find the namaste even in that,
Yeah.
right? There's a namaste even in that.
And
So,
I love the idea that you're bringing up also of this idea of spirituality doesn't have to be this namaste. I'm going to wear all
oh,
white and I'm going to be
not me.
Not me either, you know, like I'm out there just like doing my thing and I'm like, yeah, I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual like, you know, I mean, I got some crystals, I got, you know, like I do some stuff, but I'm never like, oh, I'm gentle. No, I'm going to tell you some
Oh,
shit.
yeah, that we talk about this a lot. That's called spiritual bypass, right?
Mm,
And the bypass is, that quote from a long time ago. I always thought it was Wayne Dyer because that's where I first heard it, but it's not. It's a French gentleman that said, "I'm a spiritual being having a human experience,"
yes.
and you can't bypass the humanity with the spirituality, right? You can't.
No.
It keeps me from feeling my feelings. And if
Right.
you don't feel it, then it's going to come out sideways. It's
That's
going
right. Oh, it's going to come.
out sideways,
Yes.
right? And so I can't bypass. I can say, this is one of my favorite ones. We are one. We are.
We
We
are.
are
Absolutely.
at a spiritual
We are
level.
also not.
We're right. We're also not the same, right?
Right.
We get confused with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I can bypass, right? I
Right.
can say that sexism doesn't exist and racism doesn't exist
Right.
because we are one, and that's bullshit, right? That's,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
it's bypassing.
That's
Okay?
right. And you know, that's passing the buck, and that's like you have to really feel within your heart where that exists for you because
Yes,
you are contributing to it. Like,
that's
you know, like not only are, you know, like if we're gonna just take black and white at this point, because talk about racism, because I mean we can take any like group of people, but if we just take black and white, like not only have, you know, we as white people like me, right, like my people have contributed to the way that white people see black people. We have contributed to the entire culture of the American black experience.
oh
We
yeah.
created it. And so the ideas you have as a black person in your mind were given to you at birth, like from
Right.
like this history, and it's like, and we are
In the
all
matrix.
contributing to that idea,
Yep.
you
Right.
know.
The box in the matrix. There's a black box. There's a white box. There's
Hmm.
a this. There's a man box. There's a
And there's a
woman
woman
box.
box. That's
Then you
right.
get to the complexity of how they all intersect. There's an economic status block.
Hmm.
There's a rich block. There's a poor block. And you get to all the because the matrix is moving. It's
That's
all
right.
moving.
That's right.
So
And
it's the holding the complexity of this whole thing.
you know, and you mentioned early on when we were talking the word paradox, and I use the word paradox because there's one grand paradox, and that paradox I see as being we are 100% human separate beings, and we are 100% connected God beings, and the fact that we have black and white, rich and poor, and dot dot dot, all are exhibited within the fact that we can't yet as mankind justify completely that paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is fucking hard to do. And
Yeah,
anytime we feel, and when I talk about triggers, I talk about them both on the negative and the positive,
absolutely.
because you can't just look, oh, I'm triggered and I'm hurt. Well, when you're feeling ecstasy, you're being triggered as well.
That's right.
And that is solidifying that paradox within you even more.
I
and
love
and
that.
and it's a real difficult thing to work through, but when we can realize that yes, we are both, and we have to work through the human experience to get to this place where we can incorporate this oneness.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Play it.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Nikki,
I
it
got feel
has
like you're
been
a brother from another mother.
I'm telling
Yeah,
you, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
Nikki, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everything you have to share. Thank you so much for bringing Y12SR to the world. And I looked at your website and you have stuff in every state. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got stuff now. It's gone pretty much to so many different parts of the world. It's just did training in Kenya not too terribly long ago. Have done them in Cuba. I've done trainings all over, and it's just amazing to me because it's come out of this grassroots kind of thing, and it's just the spread of it's been amazing.
I'm so grateful not only to have found Yoga 12-Step Recovery as another aspect to recovery, but also been able to connect with you so easily. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing here. Recover yourself. I mean, it's so vital, and I thank you for putting this lens on things in a way that for me, broadens this whole conversation, and so grateful for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I want to thank Nikki for all her insight and opening up about her story and really digging in to get deep with me. You can find links to Nikki's website, where you will find trainings and more information on Yoga 12-Step Recovery, and be able to find Y12SR meetings near you. One thing I love about those of us that are doing the great, deep work of recovery is that we all have a healthy outlook. We can step back and observe without getting caught up in it all. Not that it's easy or comes without fail, but we do keep getting better. As our minds heal, our bodies heal. And I always say, if you want to be sexy, confident, happy, and wicked smart, recover yourself, because that is exactly what you are without all the shit you picked up everywhere else. I love what I do so much, and to connect with Nikki was such a gift. Without people like her and my other guest, I couldn't paint the complete picture of what recovering ourselves looks like. You see, we're each contributing to it in our own unique way, and everyone is going to be recovering themselves differently because, well, we're all unique. That means there are no concrete answers as to how you are going to recover yourself. Listening to this podcast exposes you to information and ideas about how some of us with long-term sobriety have approached and achieved amazing lives fulfilled with the ability to be vulnerable, trust, and to love. I hope this podcast is a light for you, guiding the way to recovering yourself. This podcast can be used by counselors and groups to discuss big picture recovery and how recovering yourself is a journey we are all on regardless of our past. Consider heading over to anchor.fm and supporting this podcast with a donation. While you're there, feel free to leave me a voice message with comments, suggestions, and criticisms, all of which I would be grateful to receive. If you are someone in long-term recovery and can relate to the concepts presented here, reach out to me on my website or social media. Once again, I'm your host managing long-term sobriety, MartinJon. Until next time, keep recovering yourself.